The big bark, listen up dog owners, it's for you, all you canine lovers. It's your favorite podcast, The Big Bark, with your host Darragh and canine co-hosts Bruno and Milly. The Big Bark.
And we're back on The Big Bark again this week. Welcome back. We had a great episode last week, and we have a great episode in store for you again. We had this great man on a couple of weeks ago there, and we're delighted to be back. It's great being back doing face-to-face interviews rather than all this like Zoom stuff that we've been doing for the last year and a half. But it's great to be back here in Treaty Veterinary Clinic this evening with John Garrahy. John.
Welcome. Thanks for having me back on again, Darragh. Great
and you're welcome into the clinic again. That's so there we go, look.
Very good.
So, okay, John, how have things been going since last time we talked?
Very well, very well. Practice, I think, not just here but nationally, companion animal practice, we'll say, has been extremely busy nationwide, particularly since COVID kicked in the spring of 2020. I suppose one of the unforeseen side effects of COVID, and a result of people working from home and people and families who may have been considering getting a pet, decided in many cases that because they were now at home and family was at home, that this was a very good time to get a pet. And so that led to, I think, a spike in purchases and ownership, and a rise in the cost of buying puppies as well. Probably has it levelled out, I understand, of late, but puppies became very expensive in 2020 as a result of the sort of unexpected and unprecedented demand that arose. And to date, I have to say personally, I've seen information from Dogs Trust about they're starting to get a spike in inquiries about returning pets that are no longer wanted. Thankfully here locally anyway, we have not seen that. Thankfully these pets all to date seem to be working out well with their owners and with their families. But I suppose it just brings up the whole new thing that getting a new pup, which is lovely, because it's very exciting for a family, a very happy time, and one of the nicest consults to do from a vet's point of view in a clinic is when you meet a family, particularly with children, with a new pup, and you can see it's almost like Santa Claus Christmas is here. There's real happiness and joy, and it's great to see that and be part of that. Equally, I suppose one has to advise these people, and hopefully that these people, before they've come to you, have given all of this a lot of consideration. I know it's a cliche, but a pup is a commitment for life, and that life might be 12, 14, 15 years, who knows. So people have to sit down and do a lot of thinking before they get their pet. First of all, they have to think of their circumstances, where they're living and what type of space they have. So not every place is suitable for getting, we'll say, a large breed dog if you're living in with limited garden space, or maybe little or none, so maybe a smaller breed. But the whole type of thing is to consider, we'll say, for your circumstances, what type of dog would suit you, what size dog, what exercise. You can range from your Yorkshire Terrier up to your Golden Retriever up to your Great Dane. So there's a lot of thinking that people need to do first and say, yes, we have the time, or we can make the time in the morning or in the evening, or will there be someone in and out of the house, and that this pup won't be abandoned. And as I say, to date, I must say, and in general actually, I think owners should be complimented from what I see in practice over the years. People take brilliant care of their pets in practically all circumstances. I think by and large people go to great extremes and take great care and are very proud of their pets and really, really look after them, micromanage them so well, they keep them so well. So for people going out, having considered that they've sat down, they've done their homework, and to say, yes, we want to get a new pup, then I think they've got to look at where they go. And there's various ways. Maybe they may know someone who has a dog, and they maybe put them in touch with a breeder, so they could go to known breeders, and if most breeds have breed societies, so maybe get in contact with the breed societies, maybe get in contact with the kennel club, who can give you a list of breeders for whatever breed you're interested in, or again to consider various welfare groups. Now the welfare groups, again, kind of a wide variety of dogs. They may not all be pups, they may be older dogs, so people might prefer to get a younger dog that they're going to have a longer life with. But all of these are possible places to source a pup or to source a dog. The rescue groups, again, more often than not, will do a certain amount of verification and checking of the person if they've had pups before, maybe ask their vet to vouch for them and recommend them. So basically, anyway, people buying the dog need to figure out what would suit them, figure out then where they go. We'll say obviously just not going on to any old website that's selling dogs. But so go on personal recommendations, go on breed societies, contact the kennel club, and then having found where there may be pups that are suitable, it's vital, it's absolutely essential that they go and visit the breeder and they see the pups in situ with the mother of the pups, and possibly the sire may be there as well, and get a sense of how these pups are being cared for, that they're well-minded, that they're not that they haven't stumbled into some sort of large commercial puppy breeding enterprise, that they're able to examine the pups, that they're able to examine the mother. And again, for most people getting a pup, probably the single most important thing is that the pup will have a good temperament, and temperament is, I suppose, by and large hereditary. So what's important there for the person going getting this pup is to examine the mother in particular, if she has a good temperament. And when I say a good temperament, that you can examine her, that you can pat her, maybe look into her ears, open her mouth, pick up her feet, and that none of this is resented. If all of that is, if the breeder allows you to do all of those things, you're quite happy. Again, if you're making a purchase, there are certain things you must, and again with certain breeds, I should say actually, particularly with pedigree breeds, they may have done things like hip scores or elbow scores. So again, this is relevant to ask of the breeder. Have the parents been hip scored and elbow scored? Depending on this arise in the larger
What do you mean
breeds.
now, John, by hip scored?
Hip scored, yes. Larger breed dogs can develop a condition called dysplasia. Dysplasia is basically an anatomical defect where two bones that are meeting to form a joint, as in their hips or their elbows, do not form a perfect, like a plug into a socket, and that you have a shallowness and poor contact between the two bones. And if you have poor contact with those two bones in that joint, then you get abnormal and premature wear of cartilage, which can predispose then that those pups or dogs are going to have lameness issues earlier in life, as distinct from dogs that don't have it. So hip dysplasia and elbow dysplasia in the larger breeds is an issue and can cause problems and can cause it really can compromise the pet's quality of life. So again, with those breeds, there should be scores. If the scores are good, again, you can anticipate that the progeny should have good scores. So checking out as much data as you can, and again, before a purchase is made, that all the relevant documentation is available to you. If the pups should have been by law be microchipped, so that you get a microchip record and you get vaccination records. And the microchip records, the breeder signs off on it, a bit like you buying a car and a logbook. The seller of the car signs it, and then you register in your name. Time and time again, I see where people buy dogs and this information is not given to them, and they say the breeder will forward it to them in time, and oftentimes they do, but sometimes they don't. So I think important at the time of the transaction that all the relevant documentation is made available to the purchaser at the time of purchase and before they take away the pup.
There's one thing that I hear quite often, and it's like when you get a pup, especially if you have younger children, you have to remember the dog's not a toy.
Oh yes, the dog is not a toy. No, that's very true.
But you kind of have to, like, as well as training the dog, you also have to kind of like teach your children how to behave around the dog.
Right. So grand. So if a new puppy's bought, it's brought into a household. Yes, there's like I said, there's great excitement. Everyone wants to hug him, kiss him, lift him, and there's a certain maybe novelty factor arises. But yes, the pup it needs to find his own place in the family, and he must know where he fits in it, that he's not dominant, he's not in control, but that he's included, so that he's cared for. That we'll say there's a thing about that the 5 freedoms for a pup or for any pet, that he's in a safe environment, on a proper diet, he's allowed to behave normally, and that he's kept in good health, and that he has what's called companionship, so that there's people, that there's human interaction for him. So all of those things should be put in place at the beginning with the children as well, so that they know that this is a dog, and again, of course, they've been on the breed, sometimes the dog is going to grow large and quicker than they are. So the whole thing is that taking on this new pet, they bring him home, he has ideally maybe his own crate initially, and he gets his own space, that they play with him, they take him out of their garden or wherever, but equally that, you know, he's allowed time to sleep. Pups do sleep quite a bit. They get very lively for a while, then they sleep for a while, and that there is a routine allowed to develop, so that the children become aware of this routine as well for the puppy. Okay.
And I hear you have someone there giving out inside there.
I said there's a puppy down there now giving out with me.
So John, like, one thing I'd love to chat to you about, like we mentioned there, like about, I suppose, earlier on about the cost of pups nowadays, like especially since COVID. Mm-hmm. Like I've seen online, I've seen Labradors advertised at €2,500-3,000, whereas like you go back 15-18 months ago, you would have seen them maybe for a purebred lab for maybe 600-700.
Yes, yeah. Well, not alone for the pedigree breeds, but the various mixed breeds, the prices did zoom up very rapidly. I think they have leveled, if not started to come back a bit. It was literally market forces. The demand outstripped supply, so as a result, the price went up. Not an ideal situation, because it might have encouraged then a glut of breeding, which could then lead to more pups being around than there may be owners for. And like, that's not a situation that anyone wants to see evolving, or then puppies being sold off very cheaply and not being minded or anything like that, or not getting good homes. And I suppose that is a possible side effect again, that no doubt breeders may have reacted to the huge surge in demand to breed more bitches and maybe more often, and that would be just hope we don't see that.
But as well as that, what we also saw, and like I remember it was this time last year, did an episode with Samantha Rawson and Dr. Sharon Anderson, who was working on legislation with a TD Blow in Wexford, particularly in relation to dog thefts. And you literally saw, while you had a pandemic going on last year around Ireland, you also had a dog theft pandemic going on too. You had
a dog theft pandemic, and the dogs been stolen in material of their age, and it seems maybe being exported and everything. And again, a horrible side effect of the pandemic, that there was such demand, not alone obviously in Ireland but abroad, and that people were prepared to go to such measures to get their hands on a dog, because, you know, it was something that we couldn't even have dreamt of such an occurrence a few years ago, that anything like this could happen, and thankfully I don't think there were too many, but one is too many. For a dog to be sort of taken out of its environment like that, it's just uncalled for.
And this goes back into like knowing as well where you're getting your pup from. If they're stealing dogs to breed them, then like obviously you're going to have litters of pups, and you need to know that you're getting it from a reputable breeder.
Oh yeah, well that's where what I said. Go back to what I said earlier about going to the breeder, visiting their home, and basically using your own intuition to suss out that you're dealing with credible breeders, genuine breeders, that are not just breeding bitches exhaustively for profit, But just care, and there's many breeders, and again, meeting owners who buy pups, most of the breeders that they come across are in that category again. They're quite happy to let the buyer to come, see, visit, examine, and make their purchase. So there is, by and large, there is that. But of course, there are puppy farms, and again, that's a whole matter then for local authorities or whatever to police and try and tackle them and upgrade their facilities.
And I'm just talking there about what they're saying about going and see the breeder. Obviously, like you'd hear of people who actually would meet the breeder on the side of the road.
Yes, we've had many cases of that over the years. People saying, you're coming a long way, so we'll meet you halfway in a car park. And anyone who hears that, it should set alarm bells ringing straight away when someone offers like that to meet you halfway. Because we've had situations over the years where people have met people in car parks, and then the breeder says, just give me your address and all the details will be forwarded on to you. And that's the last they hear of that breeder, and they have then got no information whatsoever on their purchase, on their puppies, so they don't know its breeding, its exact age. It may or may not have been chipped, vaccinated, or left in the lurch. And actually talk about when people do get that new puppy, I suppose one of the things that we would always advise them quite quickly, within a few days, it may not need vaccination, but to have the pup clinically examined by their vet at the outset, to just check that everything is correct, that there's no hernias, that the mouth closure is normal, good anatomy, no hernias, anything like that may arise, that get it noted immediately. And it's also a very good opportunity for even a vet to assess the temperament, because again, I said at the outset that the single most important thing probably is good temperament in a family situation. And again, you can determine a lot when you spend some time in a consult examining a pup and how he behaves and how he reacts to the vet and to the environment, and that he's not fearful or intimidated or anything. It's lovely when you see a pup that is quite cooperative about being examined and is quite relaxed. Then that pup's background, that he has been used to these things, so that he's not alarmed or frightened by any of this examination. So that is something that to bear in mind at the outset, to get your pup checked out, and also to bring along all your paperwork, so the vet will be able to say to you, yes, he's had all his vaccinations. Because again, people looking at these vaccination papers may not be aware of what they are, what are the vaccinations for. And it is important that they are correctly vaccinated and at the appropriate age, and booster vaccinated as well, as the case may be, depending on the brands and all. So people need to be aware of that, because people may look at these vaccination books and may not have a lot of knowledge of what they've been vaccinated for.
So I want to circle back to, like you were mentioning earlier, about how important it is to give a puppy their space, and obviously, like if you have young children, that they should give respect to puppies' space as well. In terms of training though, how soon after you get your puppy should you start training them?
I think basically, I think when I say there's one thing is training and the second thing is routine. And I think one of the things is start as you mean to continue. So when you get a puppy, sometimes I often hear people saying, I kept a puppy sleeping upstairs with me in the room initially, but I planned that he's going to live in such and such. My first advice there is, start as you mean continue. So if he's home, if he's going to sleep at night in your kitchen or utility or whatever room it may be in the house, start doing so. If you decide that to keep him somewhere else, then he's going to decide this is where he sleeps, and it's going to be harder to change and going to cause upheaval. So start as you mean to continue and create routine. Dogs like routine. They can follow routine. They become aware of time. They know then they're going to be fed, they're going to be walked, that their owner is going to come in the door or go out the door. So routine and a pattern is extremely important. And it's also extremely important from their eating point of view and toilet training point of view. So training, basically, without calling it formal training, is actually starting the moment you purchase and bring home your pup.
Yeah, and like I think as well, like you mentioned, even walking. I suppose that's a very good point as well, because for a lot of breeds, like obviously when they're a pup, their legs aren't fully developed.
Oh yeah.
So obviously their walks should be fairly short.
Oh, fairly short. Right. Well, the first thing to say, if you've bought a puppy, if he's fully vaccinated, grand, you can start taking him out and about. If he's not fully vaccinated, keep him at home until his vaccinations are complete and have kicked in.
It's almost like self-isolation from COVID.
It is almost like it is. Yeah, wait for the vaccine to kick in. In that time at home, maybe get him used to wearing a collar, maybe get him used to a lead, so he's walked around the garden, get him used to being brushed, again having his ears cleaned or checked, his nails picked up. Again, one of the traumas for some dogs is having their nails cut. And again, if a puppy is used to having his nails, his feet examined, his nails examined and being picked up and on an ongoing basis, he's far less likely to find that traumatic when he may need them clipped. So handling the pup, socialising the pup within the family, giving it its own space to sleep in, fixed feeding times. So again, the pup knows that I'm going to be fed at such a time and he's ready for it. So the whole thing is to get a schedule together within reason for that family. And there can be many different schedules to suit the family and the pup, but the whole thing is to have a certain amount of regularity so the pup feels safe and comfortable, that he's not going to be neglected, that there is someone coming back to mind him and that, yeah, they will be back. Because many people will tell you, again, that whatever way it is, the dogs have their own clock and are aware. Many people will tell you that, you know, the dog at 4 o'clock heads for the front door because he knows his owner is coming in, or he knows at 4 o'clock he's going for a walk, so he gets ready. So having that routine is very, very important for the pup.
And you mentioned now about when they're waiting for the owner to come home. I actually read on a previous occasion, it's something with like how much of your smell is left in the house. Do they know from that what time of day it is?
Yes, they seem to, whether through smell or whatever, but yes, dogs have a huge awareness. Obviously, without having a watch, they have a huge awareness of time. Countless people will have told me this with their pets over the years, how the pet will automatically, if he's used to being fed at 6 o'clock, come 6 o'clock he's waiting at the dish if the food isn't there. He knows.
Yeah, so many do that. Yeah,
they do. So there is a huge inbuilt mechanism, and again that clicks into the fact that they like the routine of being fed or being walked or their owner coming in the door or whatever the activity may be.
I think one important thing to mention before we wrap up here is, like, obviously puppies are very curious animals.
Yes.
And so it's important that, like, they don't get into stuff they shouldn't be. You might recall, I think it was like literally only a few days that we had got Bruno when he was a pup, and he jumped off. Dad had to bring him into you. He jumped. I don't know, was it you that he saw, but he jumped off the couch and injured his leg.
Yes. Yeah.
So like things like that, you have to always keep watching.
Well, yeah, I think there's a couple of things you have to really look out for. First of all, even with pets, if you have a garden, to make sure that, and this might be something overlooked at times, that there may be plants in it. Again, pups are curious. They're using their mouth to touch, eat, bite, feel things. So if there are plants that could be toxic, make sure your pet can't get near them. Again, if he's going to hop up, again, make sure things like cleaning products, cables and wires are all fair game for them to chew on, because we remember puppies love chewing, so they don't know the difference between some toys and chewing wires on something. So be very careful that there's no access to that, so that in the early stages at least, that puppies are being watched and are not left sort of in a room unsupervised, where they might start eating wires or get at some product that would be damaging for them, or garden things like anything from weed killer to whatever. And there's lots of things and again, one of the ones that happens over the years has been where dogs inadvertently have got at rat poison, and so again they need to be aware that, you know, that these are dangers that they need to look out for, that when they didn't have a pet previously, they didn't have to worry about such a thing, and it may not cross their mind that that their pet could think about going into these areas or eating these substances. So just to be aware of those little pitfalls as well that can arise, and accidents like that and problems that can be avoided, to avoid them at all cost.
So finally, John, like we mentioned top of the show there about how around the country we are starting to see that like people no longer want these dogs that they got during lockdown. Not everyone obviously, but there are people who are surrendering their dogs now and they're going back to the office. Do you see this being a problem going forward?
Well, first of all, I hope not. I suspect there's bound to be some. I hope it'll be on a very small scale, and hopefully there will be other people that will be able to rehome them. Now, very often when people, a family find that for whatever reason their circumstances may change, it mightn't have even anything to do with going back to work. We've had pets looking for homes recently where their owners are going into hospitals or nursing homes and won't be able to look after them. But various things arise, so the first thing you'll be saying there is hopefully maybe sometimes family will be able to find someone else within their family circle or social circle or friends that may be interested. If not, the various welfare groups and even local vets. Again, at the moment we have a number of people who are looking for pets. They don't want a puppy, they want an older dog. They do not feel they're able for the initial phase of training a pup, of socialising it, and would prefer to suit their needs. Would be better to get a slightly more mature dog. At the moment, those people are asking me for that, and there are people I know who have already had pets and looked after them, and they've lost their pets and they want one, but they don't want, as I say, to start out with a puppy. We are not able to find many, which I suppose is a good thing. Now maybe it'll change, but at the moment we cannot find pup dogs for those people. But maybe it will change. But as I say, to date we haven't seen it. But I expect there has to be some element of that will arise in the weeks or months ahead.
So especially like as we come into September soon, like, and there's talks that like going back to the offices and stuff in September, but at the same time, like for a lot of office jobs especially, remote working has now become like nearly part of the future.
Yeah, well, I presume if remote working stays, there'll be less issues. I suppose if you suddenly have a situation where all family members are gone out of the house to work or school come September, you may have dogs who are going to feel very alone and isolated and maybe left on their own for a very long time. Again, maybe people can compromise and maybe they'll only be working in offices certain days or certain hours. And again, there has been a growth in puppies going to daycare, mixing with other puppies for 2 or 3 days a week. So again, all social interaction for those dogs. So that is again something that has evolved and is there in parts of the country as well that people can avail of.
Okay, John, and any final thoughts?
Well, I think again, people getting a pup, just remember that give consideration to, are they ready for it? And presuming they are, consideration to the type, size, their circumstances. We mentioned in a previous podcast things like insurance, but also then to research into diet and to make sure to get the puppy checked out initially. Make sure to, again, in a family situation, to keep their pup. Couple of key things: vaccinated. Again, from the puppy's own health point of view, we do not want to see puppies getting leptospirosis or parvovirus. Make sure, again, from a health point of view within a family, that pups and dogs in general are regularly wormed. And again, if you have a dog and you're maybe going into parkland or woodland and countryside, and again, things like that are treated for parasites on their skin like fleas and ticks, again, these are conditions that can cause problems. So just to make sure that they have worked out that they can take care of the dog's needs, socialise him, interact him, look after him, integrate him into their family and care for him.
Alright, John. John Garrahy from Treaty Veterinary Clinic in Trumgate here in Limerick. John, thanks ever so much for joining me on the Big Bark, and I hope to have you on again hopefully maybe we'll look back and look at maybe the start of September.
No problem at all. Thanks very much, Darragh.
Well, that's all for this evening. We're back next week with a brand new episode again. No guests decided yet, but I'll post that on our socials during the week. Follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. We're on the Big Bad Podcast and all of those. Take care and have a great week.
The Big Bark, listen up dog owners, is for you, all you canine lovers. It's your favorite podcast, The Big Bark, with your host Darragh and canine co-hosts Bruno and Milly. The Big Bark.